Well, welcome all. I trust everyone has been staying safe and calm during our little ordeal that we've been facing the last, I guess, 8 months now, or close to. Anyways, let's start. I have a small introduction to read, so bear with me. This is a meeting of the Town of Qualicum Beach Advisory Planning Commission pursuant to the March 26, 2020 Ministerial Order number M083. Members of the APC may participate in this meeting utilizing electronic or other communication facilities, and members of the public will not be allowed to attend this meeting of the APC. After this meeting, an audio recording will be made available to the public in lieu of attendance at the live meeting. The recording will be available on the town's website until such time as the application or issue is no longer under consideration by council, at which point the recording will be deleted. The APC makes recommendations to council on matters respecting land use, community planning, or related bylaws and permits as referred by council or the director of planning. The APC is advisory and does not have any direct approval, ownership, or authority over the matters that are referred to it. Council may or may not adopt the recommendations made by this commission. Now, the following will be the sequence for the item on the agenda. There'll be a short introduction to the application from town staff, presentation by the applicant. There'll be questions to the applicant by our members. There will be the APC member discussion, and then finally the motion. So let's turn to the agenda. And I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. I see a hand somewhere. Oh, I see Dawn. Okay, Dawn has moved. A second would be Mark. Thank you very much. Discussion. Call the question. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And we'll move to approval of the minutes. We all received a copy of the minutes, I trust. So I would receive a motion to approve them as submitted. Okay, Petronella, thank you. And a seconder. We'll go for Mark again. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we will move on to new business. This is zoning application or amendment for 431 College Road. It's application for a 40-unit multifamily development. And we will turn it over to Luke. Louis?
Sorry about that. My unmute button was hiding from me. So yes, as noted by the chair, this is an application to construct additional multifamily development on a property that was previously approved for development back in 2012. So a lot of history on this site. And over the years, you've seen one of the condominium buildings developed while the heritage building remained in a dilapidated state, and the two other buildings were never constructed as approved. However, a very large parkade was constructed under the heritage building, as well as partially for the purpose of a foundation on the other two buildings. So the applicant is requesting a zoning amendment at this time because they intend to construct more density than is allowed in the current zoning approval. And density is not something that can be authorized through any other process than a zoning amendment. So that's why we're here today. In conjunction with the zoning amendment, a development permit would also need to be approved, but that's done later in the process by council, typically in conjunction with adoption of the zoning bylaw. The application is also somewhat complicated by the fact that there's a heritage designation on the existing building, which I noted to be dilapidated, and that's about as accurate of an assessment as I can provide at this time. It's been open to the weather for a number of years, and it does have heritage value, which is why it was designated in the first place, but it's unfortunately in a poor state. You'll find in your package that there's a memo or a short note from the fire chief expressing some concerns about the suitability of retaining it in the short term. So a few things that council specifically requested that the APC comment on, in addition to general comments perhaps about the land use compatibility, were the number of parking stalls and the compatibility of the form and character of the new building as opposed to the existing building which was already constructed, and the heights of the building. And that we do have a bit more information from the surveyor coming in late that clearly one of the buildings is no higher than previously approved, even though the variance comes in as a request. So with this, I know that there's going to be a lot of back and forth, a lot of questions coming around, so I won't excuse me, belabor the preliminary presentation too long, but certainly I'm available to either rehash highlights from the history of this application or to address specific questions you may have about the memo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Luke. Then we'll go to the applicant, and I believe that's Paul.
Can we ask specific questions of Luke at this point?
If you need a clarification to understand the presentation, or maybe we could do that after the presentation, Petronella. You go ahead anyways. And we'll...
Okay. I'm just a little bit unclear as to the numbers, because what I have in my copy of the agenda is purpose is to consider a zoning amendment application that would permit a 62 unit multi-residential development. So is that with the existing building being included, what's been called building C?
Yep.
I'm a little bit unclear as to exactly what is being asked here.
Sure, through the chair to the committee member. So yes, it's a 62 unit proposal in total. Originally, the whole development had a total of 40 units approved. So this is an increase of 22 units. Building A is going to have 14 units, Building B 22, and the Heritage Building, the Qualicum College, is proposed to have 10 units. So that's the zoning increase. What makes it a little bit confusing is that the fact that because the land was subdivided, the number of units sometimes gets expressed as the total development and sometimes expressed as the number of units on the specific parcel after subdivision. So the history does make it a little bit complicated to discern what we're talking about, but I hope that answers your question. We're going up 22 units.
Okay, so the proposal is actually for 46 new units, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like clarification? No, I would, Luke. The current, which am I to believe is includes the 16 units that are already there? Were they constructed under the current R15?
Yes, they were. That's correct.
Okay. So that would leave then 24 units left out of the current one. Is that correct?
Correct. The original proposal had, I believe it was 5 units in the Heritage Building and then a lesser number in the 2 other buildings.
Oh, we don't have plans for the Heritage Building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just telling you a bit about the history. Now, clearly they want 10 units in that building now, but the original proposal I think had 5. And overall the units were much larger in all the buildings.
So this application, the amendment to the R15, bringing it up to 62 units, includes the original already built?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're dealing with the whole parcel, but it's the development of the rest of the property as opposed to what's already there.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Does that clear it up for everyone? Good. Okay, then we will move on to Paul.
Very good. How do I share my screen? Oh, let's see here. Where do I have the option to share my screen and scroll?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll be sharing your screen. If you could just let me know when to change pages.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Perfect. Okay. What I'll do is I'll just do a brief intro, and I'll just read. It's on our website, so you can feel free to go back to the website at any time. Thank you all for attending this meeting today and to discuss Qualicum Heights. It's taken 3 years to move this project to where we are today. Working with Cambridge Manor, that's the 16 units that's completed, which is called Building C. We secured all the signatures to do what's called elect not to proceed on the original developer's plan. And that allows us to move forward with some new plans that are much smaller, anywhere from about 1,100 to 1,300 square feet compared to 2,000 square feet. So what I would like to do is just read off of the website here. And Bonnie Madison was the original architect. And what you can see in this first page is the red highlights are the original Bonnie Madison plan. And what we have tried to do is stay within the footprint, basically, and not make the buildings bigger, but just square the buildings off. So we're staying well within the setback lines. And as you can see, our dark lines are our new proposed plan, and the red is the original. We'll just scroll down to the next slide, please. Okay, yeah, this is basically a blow up and of building A, and you can see the red foundation marks. They had a lot of 45-degree angles, which is very expensive to build, and we've just basically squared off the plans. We'll scroll down to building B, and that's zoomed in as well. So again, you can see the blue lines, those are the no build areas, and we've stayed well within that margin, and in some cases well within the red marks of the original Bonnie Madison plan, and tried to square off the building, which is a little bit more cost effective to build. And we'll scroll down. So building D is the old Qualicum College Inn, and basically we're staying within the same footprint. That won't change. What we are trying to do is redesign the insides to 10 rental units. And as we go down a little bit further, I'll show you those plans. So next are, the heights are our concern, and I knew that going in. And before I got the signatures from all of the 16 owners, which took 3 years to do, I actually canvassed the entire neighborhood, and I sent them a questionnaire sheet of 3 of the most important things that they wanted to share with me. And I got a stack of about 40 replies within about 2 months of me doing that. And one of the main concerns were heights. And so in our plans, you can see that we have brought our heights down, not substantially, but 2 to 3 feet. This first picture here is of building A, and it was set at 43.6 meters. And building B, it's hard to see there, it's set at about 45.89 meters. So our new plans are going to be much smaller, lower than that. If we can just scroll down slightly. Okay, that's good there. Oh, just scroll up just a little bit more. Okay, perfect. So our proposed building for building A, the heights are going to be coming in at about 42.8, which is 0.8 meters lower than that original plan. And building B, we're going to be about 0.29 meters lower than the original plan. We'll just scroll up to Sims and Associates there. Sorry, scroll down. There we go. Oh, just back up to the chart there, the Sims chart. Yeah, right there, perfect. So Sims and Associates are the surveyors, the original surveyors who did all the survey on that property, and we've retained them to continue on. And they have come, so the height calculation, why we need a variance of 0.5 meters for building A and 1.2 for building B is because there's a funny calculation. I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but what I've been told is that they take the natural grade. So when you first survey a property, they survey the heights and the grades, and they use those numbers to do the calculation. The developer, the first developer, ended up cutting about 3 feet of earth and brought the site lower by about 3 feet. So that is why we are needing a variance. It's just how they calculate the maximum heights. So like I was saying, building A, we are needing a 0.5 meter variance, and building B, 1.2 meter variance. We'll scroll up or to the floor plans. Yeah, perfect. So building A and B, these are the floor plans. And what I would like to note is that the original plans were very large. They were almost 2,000 square feet. And economically, it would be very difficult to sell a 2,000 square foot home for under 500. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why they had a hard time. So we are redesigning to all these units in building A and B to 2-bedroom, and they will be between 1,100 and 1,300 square feet. And what you'll notice is in this plan, the bedrooms are side by side, and then you have a living corridor just to the other side of the bedrooms. If you want to just scroll down to the next picture. This is one of my favorite floor plans. It's a corner unit, 2 bedrooms on opposite sides, with living in the middle, and these units are going to have amazing ocean views. We'll scroll down to the next slide. So again, all of these units are 2-bedroom, and this plan, basically the living corridor separates the 2 bedrooms, which is a nice alternative. We'll scroll down one more. Here, each of the buildings will have a hallway corridor, and the units are going to be on either side of the corridor. So these plans are basically flipped. So again, you have a 2-bedroom with living in the middle, kitchen, dining, living. Most of the plans have a small office or storage room. We'll scroll down. Again, another 2-bedroom, a little bit different, side by side, living on the far side again. This plan has a little bit larger den or office. We'll scroll down to the next slide. And again, very similar plans. Most 2-bedroom condos are, where you have the 2 bedrooms side by side and the living room on the other side, or the living quarter in the middle and 2 bedrooms on either side. It's very typical. We'll scroll down. Okay, this is the Heritage Building, and the original plan had amenities in, I believe it was the 2 floors, the basement and the main floor, and then it had some 5 maybe units above. And what we want to do is provide purpose-built rental, and in the basement there's basically two units in the basement, And it's a very good mix of 1 to 3 bedroom rentals that we'll be providing. This is in the basement level, but it will be at grade. But the main entry is, obviously 1 story above these units. But this is a 2-bedroom with kitchen, dining, living in the middle. And the master has a nice ensuite, and the other bedroom will share a common bathroom. We'll scroll down to the second basement layout. Perfect. Yeah, this one here, we have the bedrooms side by side, and kind of a very large unit actually. Kitchen, dining room with living room. Those windows will be looking north out to the water fountain feature. Let's scroll down to the next plan. So this is the main floor. As you come that roundabout, the front entry, this would be a main floor. One of the units, it's a 3-bedroom, and on this floor there's 2 plans that are 3-bedroom. So you can see that it's going to cater to maybe even a small family. You get the 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and now this 3-bedroom. So obviously 2 bedrooms at the front, 1 at the back, which is the master ensuite looking out to the north with nice ocean view. And then, small kitchen, living room. We'll go down to the next plan, which is the second 3-bedroom on the main floor, but it would be considered the second floor up. Again, this is a 3-bedroom, 2 bedrooms facing the south, and the master facing north with a nice ocean view. You see a deck out the back, and a small kitchen, living area. Okay, let's scroll up to the 3rd floor. 3rd floor has 4 units. These are the 1-bedrooms, and very small, 1-bedroom, bath, and small kitchen, living area. And we'll go down to the next unit. Again, just a 1-bedroom, small kitchen, living, dining area, a small little powder room. The 3rd plan, again, another 1-bedroom, powder room, dining. And you got to realize that we were working with the existing footprint of that heritage building. We were really limited with the access that's from the parkade into that building, and from there working with the elevator shaft. So the layouts aren't necessarily exactly how I would do it, but we're sort of limited with what's been given to us. And we'll scroll just one more. Yeah, that was just one last 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor. So this is the 4th floor. This floor, I'm super excited about this floor. There's 2 units up top. They will have the entire width of the building. And if you've ever been up in that building, the views to the north are amazing views. Yeah, I am super excited about this plan, and I'm sure somebody else will as well. 2 bedrooms and just a large living area, kitchen area, dining. It's beautiful, and it's basically mirrored and flipped facing College Road or to the south. If we scroll down, we'll come down to our parking calculations. So a 1-bedroom requires 1.25 parking, a 2-bedroom 1.5 parking stalls, and a 3-bedroom requires 2 stalls. In Building A, we have 14 total units. They are all 2-bedroom, requiring 21 stalls. Building B, again, they're all 2 bedrooms, 22 units requiring 33 stalls. Building C, that's the 16 units that are completed. They have 3 1-bedrooms, 13 2-bedrooms, and 23.25 is what's required. Building D, that's the rental, 15.25. So a total of 92.5 parking stalls. And we will have a total of 80 underground. There's currently 6 above parking stalls at Building C. That's the Cambridge Manor building that's completed, and a proposal of 6 beside Building A for a total of 92 parking stalls. Okay, we'll scroll down to elevation drawings. I hope, well, that might be, okay, yeah, well, that's good, yeah. So this is looking north, and we're looking at the existing building C. That's just to the right of the Heritage Building. And you'll see, obviously, Building D and B. The exterior of the old school is substantially the same. Stucco exterior with black trim accents and black windows finish off the building. To the left of this first picture, you'll see the color scheme that we're going with. White stucco, black windows, and an iron gray trim. And if you look at this picture, the color schemes all sort of tie in together, and that's what our architect, Joyce Truce, decided on. We'll scroll down a little bit. So we continue, oh, just come back up just to see that last picture. There we go. We continue to look north, panning to the west, and see Building B to the right of the boys' school, along with Building A. Exterior materials consist of hardy siding, cedar shake, and stained fir or cedar front entry trims. We'll just scroll to the next picture. We zoom in now to see a closer look between the school, the old school, and Building B. Note the colors complement between the buildings. Scroll down. We now zoom out and we can see the old school, Building B, and a portion of Building A in that far left corner. Note the heights of the building. The boys' school is the highest elevation. And as we go to the left, to the west, each building steps down in heights. We'll scroll down to the next slide. So now we're panning a little bit further west, and we see the view between buildings D and B. The front entry to the Building B is set in several feet from the front of that building. And if you notice that the pitches, the roof pitches for this Building B are quite a bit shallower. And we really thought it was wise to actually be lower than the original plans. So that is why that design was done. We'll scroll down. Here we get a better picture of the front entry of Building B. So another viewpoint. Okay, we are panning all the way down west here, and this is Building A. You can see the underground parkade that has, well, it doesn't have it yet, but it's supposed to have fir or cedar trim beams decorating that entry. The front entry of Building A also has a wood beam decoration at the front. So I'll just quickly note the heights here. That Heritage Building obviously has the highest elevation. The dark building as Building B, it's not fully marked out here, but it's lower than the original Building C. So you can see as we come down that hill to the west, except for obviously the Heritage Building, every building is lower and lower and lower. And according to the original plan, we decided to even reduce that furthermore. So now we're looking east. Building D is in full view with building B set in front of building D, but it's not fully hatched. You can see the existing building C in that background. We'll just scroll down a bit. We're now looking west. Building D is in full view with building B in the background, obviously noting the elevation changes between the two buildings. And we'll, next slide, there we go. We're now looking east. Building A is in full view at the front with building B, D, C in the background. You can see the elevations, how they step down. So we're now looking east. Building A is not hatched. In full view is our building B. Above the underground parkade are 2 stories, and butting into the back side of the underground parkade is the ground floor level. So you'll have 3 stories from the back side, but only 2 stories from the front side. We're now looking west. Building D is not hatched in this picture. Building B is in full view. And looking west again, building B is not hatched in this picture. This is building A in full view. Okay, this is probably one of my favorite pictures right here, seeing all the buildings at once at the backside. We're now looking south at the rear of the buildings. Note the existing building C laps in front of the old school, just like building D does. So this building C here, you can see it covers a section on the left side of that Heritage Building. And then building B, it does the same thing on the right side. So I think the original developer wanted to kind of keep it symmetrical. We'll scroll down. So we're now looking south, southeast in front of building A. You can see building B in the background, along with a portion of building C in that very left corner of the picture there. So this building A, it'll have 2 stories above that parkade. And what you'll note is there is a flowered retaining area. So it's going to bring the grade up slightly along that parkade. Architect tried to, don't know if it's easy enough to see or not, but there it is. Okay, we'll scroll down. We're now looking south through a corridor between building A and B. So you can see that there's a spatial gap between them. Landscapers can come down through this corridor and get into the backyards for landscaping. Okay. So we continue to look at the same corridor between buildings A and B, just slightly to the southwest. Okay, this water feature is my favorite, and when I saw this property, this is what I fell in love with. Not only just the site and the location, but what was thought of and designed here is really special. Looking southwest, we can see Cambridge Manor. That's the 16 units that's completed on the left side. Building C, along with the school, the old school, building D, and the 3-story rendering of building B. The water fountain feature is central in the backyard for all 3 of these buildings. This chart on the left highlights the color scheme proposed for this development. Hardy in 3 different colors, 4 different colors. The timbers in a cedar stain, windows in black, and the shingles in a cedar color. we'll scroll down, and I believe this is our last slide. This is a color rendering for the landscape plan. You can see there's a planting around the buildings on all 3 buildings, and then trees around that roundabout, and basically fronting building A and B. So I believe, yeah, this is the last slide. So thank you all for your time and allowing me to present Qualicum Heights, and love to move this project forward, obviously, and to get something started here on the first phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We'll move now to questions from the from the commission members, questions and or clarifications. And again, I would like us, the way we've done it in the past is that this round simply ask for questions to complete anything that Paul may not have covered, and any clarifications that you would like from Paul, and refrain from making comments about the design or lack of amenities or what have you. We'll do that in our second round of discussion. So let's start off with Mark.
All right, thanks, Bill, and thanks, Paul. Let me just get some questions up here. So I have a couple questions. One, that I noticed that the project is now aiming for step 2 in the BC Energy Code, and I'm curious why we aren't able to aim higher in this regard.
Well, to be honest with you, I actually asked for step 1, and step 1 is actually, we just finished a step 1 project in Langley. It was 6,500 square foot home, and we're super pleased with it. I think as you get up the scale, it costs more money for the developer. So I think step 2 is a great compromise.
Okay. Has there been any consideration, so the existing building C, obviously it's built, it's in existence. Has there been any consideration to modifying its appearance to better tie in with the proposed developments?
You know, I don't think the strata would want to undergo something like that. And that's the difficult part about this project, is that, you know, it really got started in 2008. And so the designs on building C are a little bit dated, and we've tried hard to come up with some features in A and B that tied building C in. But I don't think any of the strata owners, and I don't want to talk for them, but I don't think they would want to undergo an extensive renovation on that building.
You'd mentioned, thanks for that. You mentioned that it took, was it 3 years to get all 16 of the existing owners to sign off on the plans. You mentioned height was one of their main concerns. Can you outline any other concerns that they had with the project, and what you did to remedy their issues?
Well, let me clarify. The 16 strata owners never really, their concern was never with heights. It was the surrounding neighbors. So when I canvassed the neighborhood almost 3 years ago, the 40 or so that came back with input, heights were an issue. I think for the owners of Cambridge, their main concern is that it gets done. They've been living sort of in the state that this project is in, and it's very disheartening. So I think their main concern is that they want this project completed and finished. The other main concern is Building D and that heritage building, just where it is at right now. I'm fielding emails and phone calls several times a month just saying, Paul, when are you going to do something with this building? Because it is a fire hazard and it is an eyesore. But I think the main concern for Cambridge is that, number one, that this project actually gets started and finishes. Density, you know, we are adding density. Density is probably a concern as well. But I think for the majority, the biggest thing is that the site needs to go somewhere, needs to be completed. That's what I think their main concern is.
Thanks. Last question. So I believe the property is up for sale right now. Can you comment on what the intentions are with, you know, if you get approval to proceed with this project, you know, what's intended there? Is this intended to be sold to a new developer for them to take these plans into existence?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I have two comments on that. One is when I do a project, I always put that project up for sale. I always have it for sale because it gives me a guide as to what other developers think about that site. And when other developers are super keen and I'm fielding phone calls on it, it gives me great confidence moving forward with that development. So it does something more for me than it does, you know, as a listing. So I would say that that is one reason why it was put up for sale, is to see what kind of appetite there is for local developers. And I can tell you, I have received not one call, not one call. So this project has a lot of hair on it. I think that's why no developer, local developer, wanted to touch it, because there was a lot of uncertainty. It required for all 16 unit holders of Cambridge to sign off and to do what's called an election not to proceed. And by doing that, it gives that developer the room in strata law to redesign the plans. And so it took 3 years to get to that. And I think a lot of developers, they don't want to touch something that is not sure. They would rather have something that's sure and then look at it. So the second answer to your question is, to me, it doesn't matter who the developer is necessarily. It has to be viable and it has to move forward. If it doesn't move forward, it's just going to sit like this. So it takes somebody to get it to this point, to bring it to council for approval.
Great, thanks. It's the end of my questions for now, Bill.
Thank you, Mark. Dawn.
Mark pretty much covered everything that I had to say about or ask about. Yeah, that's all. I think you pretty much. The only thing is I don't know what the difference is between step 1 and step 2 when you're talking about the energy.
If you Google step 1 or step 2, basically it's the next step. Step 1 is a certain level of energy. So there's a scale and numbers that you have to hit, and each level up is higher and higher. So you would, you know, from step 1 to step 2, there's different insulation requirements. There's different, you know, basically in the construction, you're stepping up levels so that the building is more energy efficient.
Okay.
And what it what it really means in the end is that the end buyer is going to pay up for every additional step code. So if you want to do step code 3, that unit might cost $75,000, $80,000 more than, say, a step code 1. So it basically tags on more cost to the end buyer is how I see it.
And on a percentage, what would you say the difference is between the step, because you were thinking step 1, so that I'm thinking that's the lower. What's the highest number?
Well, I think right now we're about step 3. There might be a step 4. I'm not totally sure. Like every municipality has different step code requirements. So for example, in the township of Langley, if you're developing on A, you only need to go to step code 1. A step code 2 is required in subdivisions, or say 4 units or more. And then step code 3 and 4 haven't really gotten there yet. So it really depends on the municipality.
Okay. Okay, that's all I was just curious
but
about.
just for interest's sake, a regular built home to code, and now with step code 1 coming in, you can anticipate that owner spending about $50,000 more just to achieve step code 1.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Don. Petronella.
Most of my questions have been answered. I do have, you're asking for a huge increase in density. Can you just give me the rationale for that? And we'll just leave it at that.
Petronella, you were breaking up, so I had difficulty hearing all of your question.
Okay. I'm wondering what the rationale for the very much increased density is.
Well, it comes to numbers and break evens and margins. As a developer, you need a certain amount of density, and the first developer, what he was trying to do was create a very high-end unit, very large, and a very high price point. And that market obviously didn't work. So when you're creating a product that's 500 or less, you need more density to make the project viable. So that's really what it comes down to, is making this project viable for a developer.
Okay. And I'm curious, the building D, the old college, has a very clear Tudor style that you're not really reflecting in the actual design of your buildings. Was there a specific reason why you chose that, or chose not to do that?
Yeah, so we have height restrictions, and if we were to do say a 12-12 pitch on any of those plans, we could be 20 feet higher than the original plans, or than the plans that I have. So because we have height restrictions, that is why we're going to shallower roof pitches. Now, if we could get higher, if we get approvals for higher heights, it would be much easier to do that. But the neighboring properties, especially the one to the west of Building A, they're very concerned about heights. And so working within all the parameters, it's difficult to, you know, get that type of look. You just can't be done with the current height restrictions that are on the site. So that's in short my answer to that.
Okay. And have you ever considered, or did you ever consider trying to retain building D rather than having to tear it down and rebuild a replica?
Yeah, so when I first bought the building, I had originally thought that could be done, but unfortunately, it's taken 3 years to get the signatures, and in that time, the building has degenerated even more. So it would be very difficult to retain it and to build what we want to build there. The other thing is that as a builder, you're working with structural engineers. For a rental building, what you want is soundproofing between floors. And this building in this current state it's not engineered to have a concrete floor topping on each floor to create that sound deadening between floors. So that building really limits what we can do. And as a purpose-built rental, I think the sound noise transferring through units is going to be very important. So that's another reason why retaining that old structure is not feasible.
Okay. And did you ever look into if you had to build a replica of that building to develop it more? I'm not saying that very clearly, but have that as one of your buildings for sale, as opposed to building 2 new buildings in addition to that building?
Sorry, can you repeat that question? I'm not quite clear on.
I'm not quite sure how to word it. If you were to replicate the building, keep the envelope of the building or the footprint of the building.
Yes.
In a new building, build it for units for sale rather than the rental building, then that would decrease your need perhaps for building 2 other quite large buildings.
Okay, I think I know what you're meaning. Yes, we are going to replicate that building. The front facade is going to stay the same, but I'm going back to the density and what a developer needs. If you take 10 units out, it's going to be difficult for that developer to make it work. I think adding, like I know Qualicum has almost 0% vacancy. So adding 10 rental units in that old boys school, I think is a great idea. But again, it's coming down to the density and the formula that works. So what we are going to do is keep the front facade the same. That building will be rebuilt from the front. It will look the same, but converted into 10 rental units. But we do need the density.
And in your survey of the neighbors, did they have any concerns about increased traffic?
Yeah, you know, of about the 40 that came back to me, I would say that probably a half a dozen that was a concern. Of the 40 or so that I got back, I think the majority of the people were just wanting this site cleaned up. They were just wanting it completed. And you know, there are a couple people that are just, I'm not going to keep them happy. They just will not be happy. I know that. And nothing that's done there is going to keep them happy. And that's just how it is. I think in development, you will have people that whatever you do there, they're just not going to be happy. But what I wanted to do differently is to canvass the neighborhood and to ask people what their concerns were. And I would say the majority came back and said, look, we just want this site done. And for me, that was very encouraging. And yeah, there's a few that aren't happy, but I don't think I could make them happy. I don't think anybody's going to make them happy, to be honest with you.
And then I have just one kind of nitpicky little question. And you're in the heritage building. If I understand the plan correctly, on the lower level, parking level, essentially, you have the suites at the front, and then along the back, so you're sharing a common wall with the parkade. You've got a suite in there right beside the elevator and the stairs. I'm not quite sure what it is. You're showing a bedroom, and you're showing an office, and you're showing a kitchen, but is that a suite or what?
Basically, that's an office. So the idea is that would become the sales center to pre-sell out of that heritage building for buildings A and B. And that we would have a presentation center there, that we would feature a master bedroom with an ensuite and kitchen, and be able to show prospective buyers the fit and finish of what they would be getting in buildings A and B. So that's what that area is for in the basement.
Okay. And when you're no longer on site, what does it become?
I think it'll become an office space.
Okay. Does it have any windows?
No, it has no windows. Yeah, it's the parkade concrete wall is along that backside. So you really can't convert it into a suite because it's got no window for egress. So yeah.
Okay. And you are, as far as I could tell on your website, you are already actively marketing or trying to?
No, what we've done is, no, marketing hasn't started yet. What we're doing is we're putting the plans out there for people to see, and for them to, they can click on the website, they can look at the floor plans, they can send an email and start getting in the queue, so that when we start, when we have what's called the disclosure statement, then we could start contacting people, prospective buyers. But no, we're not in any sales. It's just a website showing the information of what we're proposing.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's it.
Thank you, Petronella.
For now.
Paul, I've got a few questions. Mark brought up an interesting situation on which I wasn't aware of, that about the property being up for sale. You do currently own the property, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And again, the reason for you having it up for sale?
Well, a developer always wants to, this is this is probably a $40 million build out total. And developers are always interested to know what other developers think. And so on my last project, when we did a 21 unit townhouse site in Abbotsford, I had put that property up for sale 3 times. And it gives the seller a gauge to the market, first of all. And it gives you a gauge to what other developers think about that project. And so more than anything, it's giving me a gauge. It's telling me what other developers think about the property and the development. So that, I would say, is the main reason why it's up for sale or listed.
I mean, that leaves me a little cold. Are you committed to going forward with this? Are you just testing the market with your competitors to see what they would do? Or are you actually not wanting to go forward once you've got approval?
No. I'm well prepared to move forward. I've done my due diligence on my end. I know what this project is. This is, in my opinion, the nicest piece of property in all of Qualicum. And I fall in love with it 3 years ago. I'm still in love with this property, and I'm well prepared to move forward to the first phase.
Okay. If the amendment to the zoning goes through, the development permit that you would be applying for, would it be identical to what we're seeing here now?
You know, I would say that in the main scope would be identical. Now it has to go through a few different layers. One is structural, one is code compliance. So once it's approved, these plans would have to go through those 2 cycles, and there might be some slight changes. Mm-hmm. But I would say that on the whole, the concept would stay the same. But code compliance might come back and say, well, we need this or this, and there might be some small changes. But I think on the whole, the first plan Bonnie Madison did with all 4 buildings, it went through the whole process of code compliance and structural. So I'm confident that we can get that and go through that and achieve what needs to be done. So I'm confident that these plans aren't going to change a whole lot.
So really what you're doing here now is you're going for the amendment to the zoning, and then you're going to follow through with a development permit application later.
We're going to package it all together as one.
Okay. So that brings me again to some concern about what we're seeing here and what is actually going to take place later, because we're reviewing reviewing your development permit application.
Yeah. So what's the question? I'm sorry.
Well, I want to know that going forward that the end result is going to be very similar to what we're seeing here, because council has asked us to comment on the form and character and how it relates to and with the adjacent building as well as the neighborhood in general. So we need to feel confident that the architectural elements are going to remain somewhat same, if not identical, to what we're seeing here today.
Yeah, I believe they will be the same. Now, code compliance, some of the design on the interior design might change slightly, but that
we would be more concerned with the exterior.
With the exterior,
that's really what we're looking
at.
at.
I can't see the exterior really changing much. It would be like the internal units, the hallways and that kind of thing that code compliance, you know,
Right.
might have.
Well, I understand that. I think we're both on the same page. I was a little
Okay.
concerned about the up for sale element of your comment to Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. Just the building deed, following up on what Petronella was requesting or asking you about the replica that you would were replacing the existing building with. The replica, does it have an identical footprint and massing as to what the existing building has?
That is correct.
Okay, so you're not adding any elements to it that aren't already or can't be replicated that's already there.
The only thing, the dormers in the front are slightly different than what's there. We're doing more of a shed dormer, and but the plan that you have that's in this package is what we're proposing.
And your evaluation of the existing building to be developed, I understand all the concerns you had about noise abatement and structural and what have you. So it is your estimation that this building could not be reused?
I don't think it could be, no. Now, could some of the materials be reused? You know, there's almost 300 17-foot, you know, 2x10s inside. That material could be reused, like for instance, in the front of building A, the garage, the parkade above the parkade, how it's got the beam details, right? That kind of material could be reused in, you know, building out some of the features, some pergolas, you know, that kind of thing. But that building, in my opinion, needs to come down.
So you confer with our fire chief and his comments that are in our package that
I would say so.
It's not only a safety issue at this point, it's also, it can't be really repurposed.
No.
Okay. Parking. With the increase in density, I mean, this is the entrance to a residential neighborhood. And I'm not sure on-street parking is something that this particular neighborhood would want to see. So I think it's really important to be able to contain the parking requirements within the building or on site for sure. So how many visitor parking and or disabled spots are being allocated?
You know, I don't know about that. All I do know is just the parking requirements for the total project.
Okay.
And that I had a slide on that, and I believe it's about 92 parking stalls total that's needed.
That's right. So your assumption is that visitor and disabled parking is contained in the bylaw requirements by dwelling unit.
Yeah, I would say so. One comment that I would make is that the clientele that's bought into building C, when you go down to that parkade, that underground parkade, I don't think some of them own vehicles, to be honest with you. Maybe one vehicle. It's a total different, you know, Qualicum is a retirement haven, and you know, people want to go there for quality of life, and you know, they don't have 4 cars in the family. It seems like every time I've been in that parkade is almost empty. So yeah, the parking, I can see it being a concern, and you know, you don't want to have a dozen cars parked out on College Road, and so that's why we've tried to design all the parking on site. You've got the 6 parking stalls in front of Cambridge Manor and the 6 beside Building A. So,
But it still leaves you with a deficit of 9 stalls, is that correct?
if you look at the project on a whole, it leaves us with a deficit of like 0.5.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that are you able to use the stalls that are dedicated to building C?
You know, technically we don't own them. So there, like how Luke was saying, this project, some aspects of the project are looked as based on the 3 new buildings.
Mhm.
Some of the aspects look at it as a whole. So for my calculation, I'm using this as a whole, but the 9 stalls deficit, we would be asking for a variance on that.
Yeah, but the problem is that are all of you indicated that all of those stalls weren't being used by building C. Is in your conversations with that strata, was that discussed in terms of being able to blend all of the parking into one unit?
No, I don't think so. But I think what could happen is some of the stalls that Cambridge owns, that there might be an option for people to rent those stalls. So I could see that happening. Yeah, but I haven't really had a further discussion with Cambridge about those unused stalls.
Okay, I think that is something that should be followed up, and I think it will be part of our further comments. The energy efficiency, I think you described the difference. That code 1, step code 1 is sort of just the entry level and is something that is utilized by a lot of lower mainland municipalities. Is that correct?
Correct. And you know, step code 1, it's not an entry level. It's actually a very comfortable level, to be honest with you.
Looking up on it's hard to get information on what each of those levels contain, but it appears that level 1 or step 1 is really the entry, and it's about a 30 to 40% efficiency rate. And then when you get into step 2, it gets up to 50, 60%, and then you start to get up into the really green buildings, which is a long way away. So. Has there been any indication from Luke, from the planning department, what level the town would like? We haven't heard, at least I haven't heard what the town is preferring.
Through the chair. So yeah, the town hasn't specified any particular green building requirement. One thing noted in the memo is that the benchmark is unfortunately for the developer rather high, in that when this development was originally approved, it was LEED Silver, which is certainly a much more ambitious target than step code 1, 2, probably likely on the order of 3 or perhaps 4. You know, so it's definitely ambitious. So step code 2 is a step back from that, but you know. Step code is certainly the way things are going rather than continuing with the LEED standard for the most part. BC has adopted a system that's much more regularized so that from municipality to municipality, developers don't have to relearn the different energy requirements. So step code is a good system. Step code 1 is less ambitious than the current benchmark in the zoning bylaw.
Would you say, Luke, that it's better than what is in building C?
Okay, so building C, once again, stepping back a little bit in the history, the developer after approval realized that they couldn't actually hit the LEED Silver requirements. So they ended up getting a relaxation and I believe it was built green that they followed. So, you know, once again, there's a whole fruit basket of different green building standards that you can find from place to place. Built green was the one that I believe building C was constructed to, but really it's not relevant necessarily at this point. It's constructed, it met some standard, but
Yeah,
it was different than either proposed or written into the zoning bylaw.
okay. Well, I'm just thinking that at least the new build should be consistent with the old build. If in fact step code 1 is going to be an improvement to that, then we're well on our way to making better buildings.
Yeah, and I think like built green, step code 2, in my opinion, is above a built green, because the built green entry level is basically code. So step 1, I believe, is even higher than the built green, was very on par. So going to step code 2 is higher in my opinion.
In terms of the height variance, you mentioned that the height is measured from the original grade, not what has been dug out. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the the extra height that you're putting on the building really isn't going to interfere with the streetscape, at least the visual lines that one would see from College Drive. Then, is that correct?
That's correct. But what I would like to comment on is the original plans that Bonnie Madison did for building A and B. We're actually lower than those plans, but we have to ask for a height variance because the developer cut 3 feet of the soil because structurally and for seismic they needed to bring down their seismic numbers. So 3 feet of that entire site was dug out and hauled away. So the original survey, the plan was surveyed at a certain elevation, and but now we're that elevation is 3 feet lower. So it's just a numbers game because that was done. We have a variance that we need to apply for, but our plan is actually lower than the original Bonnie Madison plan for both buildings A and B.
I noticed that somewhere in here it talked about the extra height might be required to house building mechanicals. Is that correct?
So let me just be clear. The only reason why there's a variance is because of the natural grade was lowered by 3 feet.
Okay.
Our 2 new buildings, the heights are lower than what was proposed.
That is confusing.
It is confusing. Like when a developer first buys a piece of property, they get that property surveyed. So that becomes what's the natural grade. And then when they start doing the project, you know, you'll have a seismic and structural look at it and say, well, to meet our seismic numbers, you actually need to dig out 3 feet so that we are bringing everything lower. And so our setback lines are farther away because we're cutting it lower. And by lowering it, now we are lowering that initial number by 3 feet. So a lot of the variance is only because of how they calculate. They go back to the natural grade of that first survey on that property. And so it is confusing. It is very confusing.
It is. Going back to the parking, how would you propose to get those 9 stalls that you're deficient?
Well, what I'm not going to get them, I don't think. What I would say is that when you go downtown, say Memorial Avenue, a lot of times the parking is 1-to-1. And they do that because they have there's something special about being downtown, I guess. You don't need to have parking. But there's a new development in Parksville, and they're basically doing the same thing. They have parking 1-to-1. So I need to ask for that variance. And what will happen is the parking will become limited common property. So when one unit is being sold, it will have a designated parking stall. And the people that are buying in will know that, well, this unit comes with one stall. And if you have two vehicles, you might not want to buy this unit.
So in other words, with that proposal, all of the units that would be in this development would be, they would all have one parking stall. Is that correct?
Let's see. You got to go to the parking here. Every unit would have a minimum of one parking stall.
Okay.
Let's see here. I don't have all my parking files here.
Yeah.
So there's a total of 92 parking stalls and 62 units. So it's, I can do the math on that. It's a little more than one parking stall.
You're proposing 46 units, correct? You're adding 46 units to this property?
Yeah, again, if you look at it as a whole.
And providing 60 stalls.
Sorry?
Are you providing 60 stalls?
Let's see here. There is 92 stalls total, which is 1.4 for the entire project. I don't have the number in front of me. I don't think of how many stalls Cambridge has and how many we have.
Well, you're saying here that they require 23 1/4, so 24 stalls. Is that how many they have currently?
They have more than 24 stalls.
Oh, how many stalls do they have? So
I think they have about 8 or 9 more than what they technically need.
So if we have 92 that are going to eventually be provided, and they have 23 that are required and probably have 8 more, so that's 31. That brings us down to 61 stalls then, would be for your development. And if you're saying that you're going to limit, or at least 1 stall per unit, then you'd have 46 stalls required with 61 stalls available. So there really isn't a parking issue for what I could see.
Well, and that's why when you take a look at the whole project, we're at 0.5 stalls off. So it depends on how you want to look at this. If you want to look at this as a whole project, or just the 3 buildings and what we have.
If the strata, if building C strata has it has a lock on those 20 or 23 stalls, or 31 stalls, I think we thought, then the rest that's being built that are available would go to your units. So,
Correct. They have a few extra stalls that they aren't using. It would be a good conversation to have with them to see if they would be interested in renting out stalls to prospective buyers.
I hasn't, or you buying them from them?
Or me buying them from them, for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think parking is an extremely important issue in the project. So I really think we need to have a strong look at how we can comply, because we certainly don't want to have or create a situation where you've got a lot of on-street parking because of a lack of on-site parking.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that statement. And you know, what I think is there would be full disclosure with people who are buying in buildings A and B, and that you know, if you have two vehicles, this might not be the site that you would want to buy into, and that would be you know, the disclosure statement would have that disclosure as to the parking stalls that are assigned. So when you have two vehicles, and if you want to buy into the project, you might have to sell one vehicle to do that.
Or park it on the street. That's my fear.
Well, yeah.
Anyways, I think perhaps the parking regulations on the street might come to. Okay, that's really all I've got here. Is there any other question or clarification from that's come arise out of the conversation we've had?
I have one one
Mark.
clarification just on that parking. In the staff memo, there's a section that says, in negotiation with existing strata owners, the developer allocated extra parking to existing owners, leaving the new proposed development short. Paul, are you the developer that's quoted in this, or was it a previous developer?
No, that is me.
So I'm curious why you made that decision or that negotiation with the existing owners if there doesn't seem to be demand for their own parking at this time.
You know, that's a good question. Being that I had to work with Cambridge Manor, everything was a negotiation, and there's certain things that I had to give up and certain things that they had to give up. And so this 3-year process, that outcome would be a concession that I gave to them to move the project forward and to get the signatures. So it was part of the negotiations.
What was their perceived benefit if they weren't using the parking? I'm just curious, like why they would want that as, you know, something that for you to give up.
That's a good question. It was just a point that that they wanted to keep, and to make this project go, you know, I had to give in to certain things. So yeah, please, Liam, not right now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. That it, Mark? Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone else?
My son's wanting to play some Fortnite, so I had to tell him to use another computer.
Meanie. Don Petronella? No, nothing else. Okay, let's move on to our comments. We'll Paul, that's just for us to discuss. We ask you not to interrupt or provide clarification unless we ask you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, where should we start? Petronella. Let's start with Petronella.
Oh, can I start with somebody else?
Well, you went last time.
You say that every time. Okay, well. I have a lot of concerns about the project. mean, I understand quite clearly from the developer's point of view why he's wanting to do what he is wanting to do. And I kind of understand from the town's point of view in terms of the existing building, why they want to do what they want to do. However, I think overall there's a lot of trade-offs that don't benefit the residents of the town. So primarily it's the increase in density. It's more than double. They're asking for more than double, is my understanding of what's allowed. Where is it? So according to the OCP, land outside the village neighborhood that is designated as multifamily residential shall not exceed development densities of 30 dwellings per hectare. And the proposed density is 79 units per hectare. So that's more than double the density. And I think that probably a lot of the entire discussion and the whole project is predicated on what the land use was previously, which was the College Inn. And I don't know the exact history, and perhaps Luke can clarify it for me, but it seems to me that the idea that there should be any multi-residential in this neighborhood at all is predicated on the inn having been there and then trying to save that building. And so then it was, well, maybe it could be residential as opposed to commercial, but it has to be multifamily residential because it's a big piece of property. I don't know. But I am very concerned about the massive increase in density. And once again, it does go against the OCP. So I don't know, Luke, if you want to say anything at this point, or are you?
Yeah, no, I'm here, and I'd be willing to comment. You said a lot of things, so maybe if there's something in particular I can comment on, that would help me out.
Okay, so this project is not in the village, and the village is where where the town is trying to increase density. So essentially you've got a very dense project or proposal for a very dense project in a single family residential area. So it seems to me that that whole idea of multifamily within this neighborhood is predicated on what used to be there in terms of the College Inn, and that it has had heritage value. And I guess you could just comment on that. Is that the case?
Yeah, no, I will comment on that.
Okay.
There's two ways to look at this. One would be that this is a commercial / multi-residential development in a residential area. The other way to look at it is that this is a commercial residential property where houses sprung up all around it. And I would say it's actually more of the second. If you look at the history of the town, the boys' school and the historical use was here long before all these houses around here were, so the use here has been consistent for a very long time in terms of having multiple dwellings on the site. It had a tourism designation prior to the zoning amendment in 2012 that would have accommodated somewhere around 80 tourist units. And history being what it is, and I just think it's important to understand that this is not a random multi-residential project that was dropped into a single family neighborhood. It predates a single family neighborhood. It's kind of like people complaining about the airport when they built a house next to the airport. Just so you understand that use predates the single family use.
Right. I do understand that, but well, okay, I'll just leave it at I'm concerned. I'm concerned about a huge increase in density. It does go against what is in the OCP. And I think that there are many residents that are quite concerned with the density and with the height. I would think, I don't know for sure, but I would think particularly that the neighbors that are immediately to the west of Building A, not only is the existing site for this project a lot higher, the topography, but there are going to be multi-story buildings on top of that higher land. So I think that the density is a concern for me. And also, I think that the project overall could be more in keeping if the old College Inn, keeping the facade essentially of the old College Inn is important because it has heritage value, then I think the surrounding buildings could do better in terms of fitting in with that style, which also fits in with some of the houses that are built more on the Burnham Road, I'm not sure, on Burnham. So I'd like to see the buildings reflect that character more, the Tudor character more. In terms of the old school being used for rentals and being considered an amenity to the town because there is a need for rental accommodation. There are only 10 units proposed in there. And as the developer suggested, the top floor is only 2 units, 2 very huge units. The rent that they're suggesting for those units is, the lowest is $1,518 for the 1 bedroom, up to $3,000 a month for the larger suites, which is about, well, for the smaller suites, it's $2.57 per square foot for rental, which I don't know rental rates right now, but does that seem reasonable? Maybe Dawn could help me with this. In terms of rental rates, are these reasonable rents, or is this going to be expensive rental accommodation, which isn't really supplying the needs of the younger people that the town says it wants to be able to accommodate by asking for more rental space. So that's a concern to me. And also the fact that the rebuilding or replication of the college seems to be being used for a lot of leverage in terms of what the developer is asking for. So I do have concerns about the density. I have concerns about the energy efficiency, and I have concerns about the compatibility with the adjacent land uses. I don't really think that these buildings are particularly compatible with what's around them. Parking, I'm not quite so concerned about it, but those would be my concerns. I think that that we need to try to respect what the OCP is telling us, and I think it's just too much density that they're asking for. So those are my initial comments.
Thank you, Petronella. Donna.
Okay, well, if I could help Petronella with a couple of things first, that would be good. Rental market right now, it's unbelievable. We've got so many people here that thought they could come from wherever Canada and be able to buy a home and just move in and live happily ever after, but that's not happening. The Resort Drive, all of those units down there that would normally rent for about $1,500 a month through the winter are getting $3,000 a month for a tiny little condo that might look over the water. All of like Oceanside Village Resort they're getting probably $2,500 to $3,000 a month, depending on whether or not you have a pet. So it's been bananas. Like, people are actually buying RVs and going and trying to camp out at sites like mine up at Bowser Bills, where they're willing to pay me a whole lot more money than I would normally get. So yeah, there's a lot. It's really tough out there right now for rentals. So I don't think that you're gonna have a problem with getting any of those rents, especially even for the bigger units at 3,000. You could probably rent them all right now today. Parksville has opened up a whole bunch of new rentals, and they're already waiting lists for them. And now they're taking a waiting list for another couple of sites down on Moyliette. So that's what's happening in the rental market. I'm pretty familiar with Building C and the fact that I've shown a lot of the units in there. And I can't tell you if I've ever seen more than one car in the outside parking spaces and no cars on the road. I hear what you guys are saying about a higher density and how that might add some pressure to the parking. But what I'm finding with the buildings that we're selling, whether it's in Nanaimo or Parksville, because we don't have anything to sell in Qualicum Beach, the parking doesn't seem to be an issue for people. Most people are looking to downsize into a one-car arrangement, and electric bikes have become huge for people to, let's leave the car here and now we can ride up into town because we've got some assistance to get up some of those hills, etc. So I think people are changing the way that they think about cars when they're living closer into a town center. You've got lots of buildings in Victoria right now that don't offer any parking at all, like zero. And and I think that's interesting that they've allowed that to go that way as well. But it doesn't mean that we should do that. I'm just saying that that's what's kind of out there and happening. You're concerned, Bill, about Paul having his place up for sale. It's not uncommon to see a developer do that either. They kind of want to get a feel for, gee, am I on the right path? Am I going in the right direction? You see it a lot more on the mainland than you do here in our little area. Usually when a developer finally gets a piece of property that he can develop, he just wants to move ahead because it's going to be difficult to find a next project. And that's what I've noticed with some of the people I've worked with. The height, I mean, he's lowered one and he's asking for a 2% difference in the coverage. And, you know, and the 2,000 square foot units, it isn't viable. Like the gentleman that whoever's developed building C, they wanted astronomical prices and they couldn't get them. And would they get them now? Maybe in this market. But by the time this gets built, the market changes significantly again, which is what happened to Building C and how they got caught kind of in that perfect storm when 2008 happened. You take a look at the building in Parksville, the 100 Lombardi. It blows me away that they are getting $859,000 for a 1,500 square foot unit that looks across the street to the ocean. It's a really bizarre market out there right now, and it makes me scratch my head. So a lot of people in the beach club, the residential building, have been trying to sell for years in a much better building than what the Lombardi is going to be as far as, you know, amenities and all that kind of stuff, and haven't been able to sell them. And now the sales in that building are helping the residents in the beach club finally sell their units for around $810. So it's a bizarre time for the market, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. So I personally, I like the project. I think it could look a little bit better to coordinate with the look of what the old College Inn used to be, and the great dining room that they used to have there for dinner, and the pub downstairs. Yeah, we all miss those things. But there are several homes on College Road that actually have a very similar look to the exterior of what Building B and A are going to look like. There's probably at least 4 or 5 of them on College Road that look very similar. Burnham, no. I mean, those properties are going to be hard to compete with as far as design, because they're old cottages that have been restored over the years and added on to continue to look like they do. But that's going to be difficult to replicate and have it all. It wouldn't make sense, because then one side of the building's going to look like it needs to be on Burnham, and then the other side's going to look like it on College. And so if you make them look older to fit in with Burnham, now they don't match the homes that are on College. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Don. Mark?
Appreciate comments from both Petronella and Don, and tend to agree with aspects of both. Overall, you know, I like the idea of bringing in these 10-year rentals on the old College Inn building. I like that the proposal basically keeps with the original footprint of the previous developers' plans. There respect setbacks. I like I don't mind the design of the new buildings. I think it fits well enough with the existing, or the soon-to-be replica building, I suppose. I wish there was a way to tie in better the existing building to the new plan. That to me is a bit of an eyesore, the existing building relative to the new, the proposed structures. I thought that, you know, the height variance, that's not a problem from my view. The rationale is justified there. The density was, you know, when I first started sifting into this proposal, it was an issue for me as well. I appreciate Luke's description, kind of historical description of the neighborhood and how that's come to be. And the number of units increasing, you know, for me, it would be more of an issue if the footprint of the property, of the buildings on the property, would be increasing dramatically alongside the number of units. But given that's not the case, and it's the number of units increasing within the existing footprint, it's not as much of an issue from my perspective. Parking as well, yeah, I don't want parking spilling out on the street. So if there's something we can do to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future, that's great. As Don mentions, you know, trends are changing, and, you know, we're getting less, you know, away from the 2 to 3 cars per household. So the number of parking stalls, in the buildings themselves isn't that concerning, but I do want to make sure that we protect the neighboring properties from a potential of street parking spillover in the future. And on the heritage side of things, you know, I think it's a bit of a shame that the building is where it is right now. But the fact that it's a fire hazard, yeah, it needs to come down. That should be done as soon as we can. I'm wondering if, given it is one of, I think, the town's, I think there's only 11 heritage buildings in the town, if there could be some sort of commemorative plaque or information block that we could put out on the property for visitors and community members to get some historical background on what the property is all about. Maybe that's something that could be included as part of the plan. And if there's a way to incorporate some aspect of the original building in the new build, that would be great. Whether it's the front doors or mentioned of you know, some of the original beams, that sort of thing, some accents. I think that would be an interesting inclusion. Lastly, on the energy efficiency side of things, you know, I'm seeing other municipalities moving much more progressively in this manner. Like Richmond, Squamish, Victoria are all, I believe, if I'm interpreting their publications accurately, are requiring step code 3 now on new builds. That doesn't seem to be the case where we are in our region. And perhaps that's something that's a broader discussion for the town and the RDN. But you know, I'd like to see a more progressive building there. Step code 2 is, you know, I suppose that's adequate, but just a personal comment there. So that's, oh, last one I didn't mention, I do have some concerns about the fit with the neighborhood. I don't know if there's a way to get around that. I do appreciate, again, Luke's discussion on the history of this property, and that, you know, it has been more commercially oriented for decades now. And that has been its kind of its roots. So hopefully the residential neighbors and the multifamily buildings can coexist without too much contrast, I suppose. That's it from my side. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Well, we're an interesting discussion. Density certainly has got to be one of the raising eyebrows. But when you look at what has been proposed on this property for the last whatever number of years, it always has been multifamily. And as Paul indicated, the original plans from Madison had very large units, but would have been very expensive, hard to sell. This project is using the same footprint, but just increasing the number of units. Yes, that's an increase in density, but it's something that, that certainly the town has been looking for to increase density. Yes, downtown, but we also have to have it in the away from downtown. Not everybody wants to live downtown. There's amenities that are outside the village neighborhood that are desirable as well, and certainly this location brings that to mind. So I really don't have a concern in the increase in density. It's contained. It's away. It's at the edge of the entrance to the residential community. Direct access out to 19A. So that doesn't really concern me. The OCP, again, with its 30 units or per hectare, is not in step with currently what the town is requiring, especially when you look at the opportunity that this site presents. So it does indicate that you could increase the density if you give if there's some community amenity in the staff has indicated that providing 10 rental units in an area that really has no rental is providing a community benefit. I think it's a bit of a stretch, but I think generally speaking, the containment of the density within this site certainly meets the intent of the OCP in asking for an increase in density in the neighborhoods within the town. The replacement of the college building. This is an iconic building that has unfortunately fallen into a state of repair where the disrepair that the fire chief is saying is a fire hazard. We've heard from Paul that to rehabilitate this into or back into a functioning building, especially for residential purposes, goes well beyond its economic value. So if we want to keep the look or have a look back to our past with the visage of the heritage building, but look at the future with the new development, then I think this is a combination that works extremely well. I would like to see that the building be removed. The college building be removed and be replaced with an exact replica. As Paul had indicated, the footprint would be the same, the massing would be the same. It's just the interior that's going to change to accommodate the residential. Again, I think as we've all indicated, the topography lends itself to, or the topography causes an issue with the height. And where variance is required, but it really is not a significant issue. What else? I am a little concerned about the energy efficiency, because as the OCP really wants us to push in that direction, truly I do not understand what step code 1 is or what LEED is. But if step code 1 is going to meet current requirement building codes, then I'm not sure how we can force the developer to go beyond what is the existing the existing codes, and the town not having a prescribed level to be striving for. What else have we got here? So, generally speaking, I would be certainly be in favor of allowing this proposal to go forward. Okay, any other comments after we've all had a chat?
Well, yeah. I mean, I understand everybody's opinions or saying that we need more density, and I really think that the town, that council, and we need to respect what the residents of the town have said they want, which is all laid out in the OCP, which was years in the making, and we just continue to go against what the OCP has to say. And I think it's really important to try to see this development from through the eyes of people that live next door to it, or across the street from it, or down the road from it. This is, whether in history it has been commercial use, it's not going to be commercial use. The building is not the original building. The building has not been saved. The heritage that heritage building has not been saved. It has been allowed to fall into the ground. And now the only option is to tear it down and build a replica. It just seems like the viewpoint and the general values that are laid out for us in the OCP are not being respected, and that we are giving up a lot to keep the facade of that building, which isn't the original building anymore. It's just it will just be the facade of that building, and 10 rental units that may or may not help. They're not going to help the vacancy rate, as far as I can tell. So if it were a housing project or a proposal where there was something like the two proposals that we saw, the one on Nenzel Road and the one on Rye Road, where it was more cluster housing that fit in with the existing neighborhood around, then I could see that happening. But this, it's just, to me, it's again, perhaps a good project, but it's in the wrong place. And we're talking about increasing the density, not in the village neighborhood, but in a residential neighborhood. And I don't agree with that. So that's my feeling on it.
Thank you, Petra. Mark.
Luke, I have a question for you, and just how the town determines density. And so Qualicum uses a units per hectare. In this case, this proposal looks, like it's doubling the number of units that were originally proposed, or somewhere in that regard, and brings this proposal outside of the bounds of the OCP. There are other ways to account for density, often by square foot per property and so on. So I guess that's where I was wrestling in my head with this proposal, that the building units, or the buildings themselves, the footprints are staying basically as was approved previously. The number of units doubles because the unit sizes are smaller. To me, it sounds, it's almost semantical in that way, that it's not like these are going to be massive building structures that are changing what was approved before. It's more that we're just changing the makeup of the unit. So I'm curious, Luke, if you can just give us a bit of a background or why Qualicum uses the units per hectare density marker.
Sure, yeah, through the chair. That's it's a good observation, and I guess I would say that you're right on the ball in that the way that the town calculates density, which is units per hectare, or minimum site area per dwelling unit, essentially penalizes smaller units. And the alternative to that, which I'd say you see more in larger communities, especially like bigger cities, they generally rely on floor space ratio, which basically says, hey, on this property, you can have 5,000 square meters of residential development. And it's up to you to kind of decide whether that's 50 units or 100 units, or split it up however you'd like. The parking requirements are, of course, a variable that shifts according to the number of units in almost any municipality. But your observation is right on, in that the town's way of calculating density does favor larger units. And in terms of why that's the case, I can't exactly say. The zoning regulations that are in place now date back 25 years when this density system was first put in place. So without going through the history books and, you know, talking to people that were around at the time, I can't say why this particular system was put in place.
Thanks, Luke.
Who haven't we heard? Dawn, have we heard from you as to whether you've got any other comments?
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. All right. I guess it's time. I have nothing more to add. I think everyone has covered the opposing views. I do want to bring out again, the OCP is an extremely important document. It is the time and energy that's been spent on it to provide direction. However, it can't be seen, in my estimation, as a rule book. It's simply a guideline. It says where we would like to be. Give us some thought. If you can do it, it'd be really great to do that. If you can't, tell us why you can't do it and see if we can't meld it into the overall direction that the OCP wants to take us. So I appreciate where Petronella is coming. We can't disregard the OCP, but we can't take it as literally as I think some that were heavily involved in it would like us to do. It has to be flexible. It has to be a guideline. It has to be pointing us in a direction, but not necessarily telling us how to follow that all the way along. So having said that, I do think that, yes, it certainly is way, way out from what the OCP envisions. But because it's not rule, it's guidelines, I think we can look at the opportunity to to move away from it in some areas. So what I was hearing
About that,
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, Petronella. Sorry. Yeah.
I know that the OCP is meant to be a guideline.
Mhm.
However, it does indicate or show us the way that the majority of people in the town, where they think it should be guiding us to.
Mhm.
And when we are looking at proposals like this, which to my mind don't reflect a small town village atmosphere, I don't know that it helps a feeling or a sense of community. People will drive their car or well, let's assume they're going to drive their car, go into the underground parking and go up the stairs or the elevator, and there they are, and they may or may not see some neighbors in a off the double loaded corridor. But my sense of it is that the OCP gives us a very clear indication of where the majority of people in the town would like to see the town go. And it's not necessarily in the direction that favors the developers over the residents. And that's how I interpret it. So yes, it has to be flexible, but I think we have to understand the basic principles or the underpinnings of the OCP. So that's where my hesitation always comes from, and my belief in trying to follow those guidelines that have been set in the OCP, whether it's about parking or about density or about traffic. It's all pretty clearly laid out in the OCP, and I think that we should respect that. So there we go. That's all that.
Petronella, I don't disagree. I'm not taking lightly any variances from the OCP, but I think we have to look at the OCP as we do with a bylaw. Land use bylaws are allowed to have variances. And OCP should be allowed to have variances, and variances come from specific or site-specific situations that can be justified for deviation from those set standards. So I do agree with you that the OCP has to be looked at, but it also has to be looked at in terms of the specifics that each site is bringing to the table, and be able to be varied. So I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think we all need to have a broader look at or view of what the OCP is meant to do. Okay, then I have a sneaky suspicion that our motions are going to follow this vein, I'm thinking. For land use, I'm going to suggest that the APC supports the R15 zoning amendment for 431 College Road. So if there's anyone would like to move that so that we can have a discussion if there's any amendments that come from that or whether it loses. Mark, would you like to move that? And I need a seconder so we can discuss it. Dawn, good. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Discussion.
Could you read the exact motion?
Yeah, the motion will read something along the lines of the APC supports the R15 zoning amendment for 431 College Road.
And if I don't agree, I can't really do anything about it other than say I don't agree.
So I guess that sort of is difficult to amend for sure. That's. Is there any further discussion? And I'll call the question. Those in favor? I see 3 in favor. Or opposed? 1 opposed. It's carried. Okay. All right. We don't have a development permit application, but we were asked by the council to comment on the development, the design of the development, the overall character of it. So from what I've gathered, I would put this motion forward for discussion, that the APC supports the overall design of the proposed development, but recommends the following. I think we talked through parking, and I think I've come around to say that I think probably if a variance is required, it would be in keeping with the use of the property. So I would say that would recommend that the parking variance be allowed if required. That the height variance requested be allowed if required. That the existing building D be demolished and that it be replaced with an exact replica in footprint and exterior architectural materials and design. I also would like that to Mark's comment about that historical plaque be placed on the replica building on its completion to relate the history of the property. Is there anything we need a motion to have a discussion? Who'd like to make a motion on that? Don would, the seconder. Mark. Okay. Discussion. So the elements that I've added, that the parking variance, the height variance, the repurpose or the removal and the rebuild of a replica of the College Inn be undertaken, and that historical plaque be be added to the building on completion.
And did we want to look at the being more in line with the Tudor style or not?
Okay.
Only one that,
I think the Tudor style is should be retained for its iconic value. Building C relates in no way whatsoever to the Tudor style. I think the proposed building A and building B, they certainly don't contribute in any way, shape, or in terms of form. They have, I think, attempted to, in terms of the cladding materials. But I think to Don's point, there is one house already just down the street on College that is of this contemporary design with the new West Coast view with the flying roofs and the timber entrances and what have you. So I think that trying to incorporate the elements of the building D into the new buildings really doesn't follow because the existing building doesn't. So that would be my comment on the Tudor style. Don or Mark? No? I don't know.
okay, and I also would like to, I don't know if this is the point to recommend reuse of some of the
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect. Yes.
lumber and timbers in the existing building, and perhaps certain elements like the doors, or if I guess if it's going to be demolished, that it be done in a how can I say it, environmentally aware way, rather than just getting a bulldozer to come. And I don't think they could do that anyways, because there's an existing building right beside it. But dismantle the building rather than demolish the building.
Okay, so that it'd be dismantled and that materials, reusable materials, be incorporated in it and or the new buildings A and B.
Well, or they could, offer it to furniture makers, or, I mean, there's 100-year-old timber in there, so.
Okay. Then I'll just add that to reuse on dismantling, that to reuse materials where possible. Okay. Is there anything else that we wanted to add to that? All right. Then,
Sorry, is this also the additional topics, the rainwater management plan? We haven't really touched on that.
we
Are
did.
we going to look at that or no?
Well, I guess we can go back if you want to. That wasn't, I don't think council was looking at us to specifically deal with that. Luke, what is that something that that would just be part of the ongoing development application, would it not? Luke?
Yeah, so rainwater management plans are something that the OCP specifies should be submitted for each property. This one's a bit unique in that the history is quite deep in terms of our understanding of the stormwater system in the area.
Okay.
And there were a lot of improvements done in conjunction with the first round of development.
Mm-hmm.
And the other unique thing about this is in many cases in the town, we're trying to get as much water back into the ground as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the last thing you want to do on this site, because putting water into the ground on the top of an oversteepened bank leads to failures. So we were very much encouraged, mandated by the geotechnical engineers years ago to avoid putting water into the ground at the top of the bank. And in fact, a lot of improvements were done to intercept water before it got to the top of the bank, you know, going back once again, you know, a decade. So this is an area where I don't think it requires a lot of specific attention from the APC because of the engineering history already on file.
Okay, we'll take that out. Perfect, thank you, Luke. All right. Are we all clear on what we are supporting?
Can I make one comment?
Yes.
You had mentioned an exact replica of that heritage building.
Okay.
You have to know that the back facade, the back side, the windows and the openings in the windows
Right.
have all changed to meet egress. Like the windows on the front are very, very small. So when we redesigned the 10 units and where the bedrooms are and the windows, that whole backside is completely different. So
How would you want us, Paul, how would you want us to phrase that?
I think we should, my opinion is to phrase it that the front facade would stay the same.
But adding that the footprint and the massing remain the same.
Footprint massing would be the same, but
The
even
front
the side
facade would be replicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it would be except the dormers. The dormers are different, so
True.
almost replicated.
Almost.
I'm not sure without a tape measure and a ladder would be able to determine the difference. But yeah, no, your point is well taken, Petronella. Just not sure how we can be that detailed in it.
Yeah, I can make a quick comment on that.
Sure.
The dormers historically, like if you go back to the original design, actually were shed dormers. So that's it was a different configuration. These shed dormers actually reach up to the peak of the roof. So it's definitely different. But in 2009, we had a heritage consultant comment on whether this dormer configuration was acceptable, and it was. So once again, I think it's fair to say that it is a replica, regardless of whether that dormer changes.
Right. Okay. Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, we'll finish with discussion. We'll call the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Petronella, are you abstaining or?
From the, okay, you're going to reread the motion or?
Okay, yes, that we support the overall design of the proposed development and recommend that parking and height variances, if required, be granted. That the college inn, the existing college inn, be, how do we call it, dismantled, to use your phrase, Petronella, dismantled, and that the replacement building replicate the existing front facade and have the same footprint and massing as the existing building. That we would attempt to reuse where possible materials from the existing building that have significance in quality or appearance. I think that's all of it.
So can we vote on parts of it? Or do we have to vote on?
No, you can make an amendment to take something out.
Can you read the first two back to me, please?
Well, that we were going to recommend that parking and height variances be allowed if necessary.
Okay, and then after that?
And that the existing building or college building be dismantled and be replaced with a structure that is identical in footprint and in massing to that building, and that the front facade only be a replica of the existing building. and that the timbers or building materials be reused where possible.
Just to interrupt, I'm sorry, there was just one more, a historical plaque.
Oh, the historical plaque, correct. Thank you, Bernadette.
And then the use of the repurposing the,
Yeah, and repurposing building materials where possible and where significant.
yeah. Okay.
Are there any changes you wanted to?
No. No.
Okay, then if there isn't any amendment coming forward, then I'll call a question. Those in favor? 3 in favor. Opposed, if any? Well, 1 opposed. It is carried. And Bernadette, I will attempt to put together that motion for you so that you have it a little more
No worries.
cohesive.
Thank you.
And thank you all for the afternoon. It has been a pleasure. Stay safe, stay calm, and we'll see you soon.
You could just call the
The adjournment, right. I'm sorry, yes, that's the one item I keep forgetting.
I
Motion to
propose to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Oh, okay, that was Dawn, seconded by, Petronella. All those in favor? Carried.
Aye.